Imagine waking up in Los Angeles to the sight of military trucks rolling down Sunset Boulevard. Soldiers in full combat gear stand guard at Hollywood and Vine. Not actors, but real U.S. Marines deployed on orders from the president. This was the reality for Angelenos in June 2025. What was once unthinkable, armed troops on American streets, was now happening in one of the nation's most iconic cities. News headlines blared, "Trump sends Marines to Los Angeles. California Governor declares federal overreach." The city had been rocked by days of protests over federal immigration raids, but no one expected this level of escalation. 700 Marines and 2,000 National Guard troops arrived, instantly turning a local conflict into a national crisis. LA's leaders were furious. Mayor Karen Bass and Governor Gavin Newsom had told the White House not to send troops, insisting local authorities could handle the unrest. Their objections were ignored. The Trump administration decided to act, creating a tense, uncertain atmosphere. Suddenly, the debate wasn't just about immigration, it was about who really holds power in America. The presence of armed soldiers changed the city's dynamic overnight. It was a bold move, the federal government using force to enforce its policies, even against the will of state leaders. The sight of Marines patrolling American streets raised troubling questions. Was this necessary to restore order, or a dangerous abuse of power? Los Angeles became the stage for a high-stakes drama, with the entire country watching. The city's identity, and the nation's, hung in the balance. For many, it felt like a line had been crossed. The question now, what happens when state and federal power collide in the heart of America? The answer would shape the future of the country, and everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. How did it come to this? The answer starts with a series of aggressive ICE raids across Los Angeles. Dozens of undocumented immigrants were arrested, sparking outrage in a city built by immigrants. Protests erupted citywide, some peaceful, others violent. Demonstrators clashed with police who responded with tear gas and rubber bullets. The White House watched the chaos and declared local authorities had lost control. Homeland Security claimed, without clear evidence, that outside groups were fueling the unrest. The administration argued federal agents and property were under threat. President Trump invoked emergency powers, ordering Marines and National Guard to secure federal buildings and restore order. The message: the federal government would not be intimidated or blocked from enforcing its policies. If local leaders wouldn't cooperate, Washington would act. This decision set the stage for a dramatic confrontation on the streets, in the courts, and in the halls of power. The stakes had never been higher. Governor Gavin Newsom was furious when he learned federal troops were coming. He called the deployment an illegal abuse of power and accused President Trump of using soldiers as political pawns. Newsom argued California could handle its own affairs and that the military intervention was unnecessary. He warned the move could violate the Posse Comitatus Act, which limits the use of the military for domestic law enforcement. Newsom accused Trump of crossing a dangerous line toward authoritarianism. The war of words escalated quickly. Trump and his border czar taunted Newsom, even suggesting he could be arrested for interfering. Newsom fired back, vowing California would not be bullied. Mayor Karen Bass echoed the outrage, calling LA a test case for federal overreach. She argued the uncoordinated arrival of troops made things more chaotic, not safer. Both leaders insisted this was not a partnership, it was an invasion. They were determined to fight back with every legal and political tool available. The battle lines were drawn. The conflict quickly moved from the streets to the courts. California, led by its Attorney General, filed a federal lawsuit to block the deployment and force the Marines to leave. The state argued the president's order was unconstitutional, violating state sovereignty and the rights of Californians. The Trump administration pointed to the Insurrection Act, claiming the violence justified federal intervention. Legal experts were divided. Some called it federal overreach. Others said the president had a duty to enforce federal law. The last time the California National Guard was federalized without a governor's request was during the Watts riots in 1965. This showdown was different, a direct clash between a president and one of the nation's most powerful states. The outcome would decide more than just the fate of the Marines in LA. It could redefine the relationship between the White House and the states for years to come. The nation watched as the courts weighed in. The stakes nothing less than the balance of American power. On the ground, Los Angeles was split. For many, especially in immigrant communities, the sight of Marines was terrifying. A symbol of occupation, not safety. Schools declared themselves safe zones, trying to reassure parents. Protesters saw the deployment as an attempt to silence dissent. Social media exploded with images of soldiers and hashtags like #TrumpsOccupation. Celebrities amplified the outrage, calling the city under siege. But not everyone opposed the troops. Some residents, exhausted by violence and chaos, quietly welcomed the military presence. Business owners hoped the Marines would prevent more looting and damage. The city was deeply divided. One person's peacekeeper was another's oppressor. Los Angeles became a microcosm of a polarized America. The military's arrival exposed the city's and the nation's deepest rifts. The question, whose side would history take? The chaos began with ICE raids that led to over 100 arrests. Protests quickly escalated. By night, violence erupted. Protesters set self-driving taxis ablaze, turning them into symbols of unrest. Police responded with tear gas and rubber bullets, injuring both protesters and journalists. A CNN crew was detained live on air, fueling claims of media suppression. High-profile arrests followed, including a major union leader, signaling authorities were targeting protest organizers. The international community took notice. Mexico condemned the raids and violence, vowing legal aid for detained nationals. The turmoil in LA became a global story, damaging America's image abroad. Scenes of burning cars and Marines on city streets were broadcast worldwide. The city's unrest was no longer just a local or national issue. It was a diplomatic crisis and a test of American democracy. The world watched as Los Angeles burned and the nation's divisions deepened. The stakes had never felt higher. As the dust settles, the question remains, what happens next? The lawsuit is in federal court. A judge will soon decide if the deployment was legal or an overreach. If California wins, the troops could be ordered out. If not, they may stay for months. The Pentagon's mission is set for 60 days, but that could change. The longer the troops remain, the deeper the city's divisions will grow. Other states and national leaders are watching, weighing their own responses. The events in LA have forced America to confront the limits of federal power and states' rights. This is more than a story about protests. It's about the future of the American Republic. The outcome will set a precedent for generations. The line between order and occupation has never been more blurred.